I've been given 10 minutes to talk about Equiem, but I'm actually going to spend the first 5 just setting the scene because we were born out of a much broader industry shift. And I think that shift was best summarized when Juliet Morgan recently said that the future of offices will be in hospitality. And I think what she's alluding to here is that the lines between offices and hotels are starting to blur. If we think about, let's say, the arrival experience or the way in which we interact and socialize at work, I think this also forms part of a much broader change in expectations from occupiers. If we think about flexible working or the manner in which we work, if we sit at a desk, in a booth, at a pod, the proximity to amenity, or perhaps the role that technology is playing in the workplace. And so landlords are moving from just being rent collectors to being service providers. But the reality is that most landlords are still ill-equipped to deal with this change because they have the mindset of a real estate owner. So they're very good at leasing space, transacting space, maintaining space, being the provider of office space, but historically less good at things like communications, engagement, marketing. And I think as we're seeing the rise in the workforce of the millennial generation, spaces like this are simply not going to cut it anymore. And I think that if we think about surveys like this from PwC, which kind of support that message, because they find that experiences are far more important to millennials than salary. I mean, let's just think about that for a second. We're saying that lifestyle and experience is more important than remuneration. And I encourage everyone in the room, if you're a millennial, think about the role that you do today. Think about whether or not the workplace played a factor in whether or not you chose to work there. So occupiers clearly want more than just office space. They want experiences. They want to be able to access fitness and well-being events on their doorstep. They want to be able to engage through events and connect with other people in their building. They want to be able to have pop-ups and variety and convenience on their doorstep. And they also want to use technology to be able to stay connected. And so when we're thinking about all of this, we're thinking about very much a provider of experiences rather than that of just office space. And I think the industry is therefore moving from being one that is so solely focused on B2B to one that is now being focused on B2C, with the customer being every single person in the building. And with so many more customers to market to, with so many more customers to manage, it's becoming a far more complicated model. I'd like us all just to reflect for a second on some of these brands. We all know these brands. We can all look at these brands, relate to these brands. We could look at a Jaguar, a BA, a Starbucks, and we could quite easily work out what the experiences are that make up those brands. Maybe it's we're walking into a store, into a showroom. Perhaps we're eating something, we're drinking something, we're wearing something. But I ask you, how many real estate companies would you put amongst a group like this? Arguably, there's just one. And if you sit in a WeWork in London, in Manchester, in New York, in San Francisco, you know you're in a WeWork building. How many of us sit in a Landsec building or a Heinz building and know we're in that building? And so what's happening is a new breed of landlord is emerging, one that is combining these mindsets, one that is combining these services and perks, one that is providing a much broader value proposition beyond just the rent. Free beer, free coffee, discounts on web hosting, accounting, things like that. But so far, we might just be describing something that's been around for decades, Regis. So what else is it? It's experiences. It's those Monday morning breakfasts. It's those Thursday evening community drinks. It's that access to yoga, Pilates, and other events. And I think perhaps the most interesting thing that WeWork have done is they have built a phenomenal brand proposition. There are 200,000 people around the world all connected through a single app. And so with the market fast becoming more about the end user, brand and that brand advocacy could not be more important. If you're sitting in the room now and perhaps you're a leasing agent, perhaps you're an asset manager, perhaps you work for a listed REIT, chances are that change is having a profound effect on you. It could be that you're now concerned about attracting and retaining those desirable occupiers from enterprise level down to startup level. Perhaps you're just struggling to really understand who is in my building. And thirdly, perhaps you're just unsure. How do we create a really compelling proposition that can compete at that level? And so, cue the light bulb moment for real estate. Imagine if there was a solution that combined these mindsets, that allowed landlords to deliver those same benefits that occupiers really want, that engagement, that flexibility, that community, those experiences. I will be gobsmacked if this surprises anybody, but that does exist through Equiem. And so we have three parts to our business. Our technology is streamlining communication between landlords and occupiers, allowing those occupiers to connect to services and amenities. But we don't think that just rolling out a piece of technology into a building will be enough. We don't think just introducing an app will be enough to build community. And so we power that. We power that through our expansive content bank, through our retail network that includes dry cleaners, retailers, florists, but also providing that human component through customer experience experts. I want to take you back for a second 7 years ago when the business first started, in a 1 million square foot office building in Melbourne. The landlord there was truly struggling to find out who is in the building and what do they desire, what do they like. It was also at a time when the space in Melbourne was becoming far more competitive, lots of shiny office buildings going up in and around Rialto. And so we stepped in, we turned a spreadsheet of 62 reps into a community of 4,000 people, where they're using our technology to connect to different services, amenities, doing everything from ordering their coffee, their sandwiches, booking their classes, and so on. But equally, it's allowed the landlord now to better track the behaviors and understand better what people want. And so since then, if we fast forward to 2018, the business has flourished. We are now active across 125 buildings, powering 57 million square foot of real estate, helping 110,000 people change the way they interact with their workplace in nearly 9,000 businesses. And if we just think for a moment about what we're doing in the UK, we can adapt to any situation, whether it be a large mixed-use development like IQL, whether it be a business park like the Heights in Weybridge, or it's a Grade A office building like 88 Wood Street. And so just to wrap up, I just want to finish by saying a bit about the impact that we're having on the industry. If we think about landlords, we're helping them to now communicate with up to 90% of their occupiers, helping them to stay relevant in an industry that's being completely disrupted and transforming the way they collect data. So about usage behaviors, about demographics, about lifestyle, and so on. And for the occupiers themselves, we're changing the experience that they have at work so that they can attract the best possible talent. And thirdly, the end user, changing how they interact with their workplace. This is my favorite quote from somebody at IQL who said that the presence of Equiem at IQL brings a very positive influence in both my working life and personal life. I've gradually lost weight in just 2 months, which I've failed to do so for years. In short, I feel healthier physically and mentally after working at IQL. And so I'd encourage everyone to reflect on the last 10 minutes and over the course of this morning, ask yourselves this question. What would be the implication if you left here today and made no changes whatsoever? Thank you.